Just a brief overview of what is going to have to be done to get this clutch down. One, I got the front wheels jacked up pretty high. I got jack stands under there about 8 inches off the ground in the front. That's because I got these fairings on the side. If I didn't have those, I don't need to be quite that high. And I'm not saying this is how you're supposed to jack up the back of your truck, but it's what I did because it's what I got to work with. I got a couple of brake drums, a couple blocks of 6x6s, and I got some jacks on top. Just pushing the frame up off the ground. Wheels are off the ground. Not that they need to be. Just gives me room to work in there. Before we can take the transmission down, got to get the shifter out. No big deal. There's supposed to be 4 screws holding that on in this particular truck. One of them is broken, as you can see, so we only got 3 to worry about. It's an old truck, so we don't have to replace the broken one. Now, underneath the truck, now that I got room to get under here, we're going to take the drive shaft down. Only going to take the front drive shaft off of the transmission. We'll unhook it there at the U-joint. We're going to lower this carrier bearing. In my particular case, another truck may have to do something different. We'll take the disconnect the carrier bearing from up here, and then we'll just leave the extension on up there, but we'll just unbolt it right here, and this will come down, and then we'll be able to slide this piece of the drive shaft off of the slip yoke right here. We'll tie this drive shaft up with a piece of chain. These drive shafts are heavy. I'll tie it up from on top, from the catwalk up there. We'll tie that up there with a piece of chain so it doesn't fall down. And then when we lower this front half, we'll slip that one off and get it out of the way. Then we'll have room to take the transmission down up there. And that's pretty much all we got to do as far as getting ready to get the transmission down. Got my drive shaft chained up, found a metal bar. 2x4 would work. 4x4 would be a little safer in case the 2x4's got a knot in it or something that might break in the middle. But anyway, got a piece of chain around that hooked on here. That's good. A little bit of gravity of the chain will keep the hook hanging on there so it doesn't unhook by itself. Now, looks like we're going to be doing a U-joint too. Somebody wanted me to do a video on a U-joint, and I wasn't going to just change a U-joint for the heck of it. And possibly a yoke, I'm not sure yet, but see this rust here? That's not the only thing going on there, but I see some play in the U-joint when I push on it. So yeah, we'll be doing that too, maybe a separate video. That is the joint where my carrier bearing is. That's they call that a carrier when it's inside this housing here. And when you got a U-joint in the middle of the drive shaft. And this is a slip yoke, so since I'm going to have to take the U-joint off, what I normally would have done was just drop this drive shaft up there at the transmission and take this carrier housing loose, and then I would just pull it off of this slip yoke. Just pull that one right off. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to do it that way since I have to take this U-joint off. It's a lot easier to take it off while it's supported. And so I think I'm just going to go ahead and take the U-joint off first, and then slide this slip yoke back out of the way, and then we'll just drop this from here after the U-joint's out. Take the shifter off. In my case, right here on the front side of it, underneath the range selector, is a Phillips screw. There's a couple of wire ties down here. We'll clip them off with wire cutter. I'll get this screw off. I'll need 2 hands for that, I think. Got that screw out. Now I just slide this little thing down like that. Now this piece here, I'm underneath the driver's seat on the floor down by the pedals in order to be able to see this with the camera. So I got to do it by feel. But those 2 air lines right there for your range selector, that's those running right down there in the center. Okay, see there's a little brass collar up there. I can't do this on camera, but I have to push that little brass collar up with a screwdriver. That's all I can do. It's physically impossible to get a camera on there while I do it. I'd have to have a second person doing it while I'm underneath the seat down here with the camera. Anyway, I got to push that collar up with a screwdriver, and I got to push the line up at the same time, and then once the collar is up, then I can pull the line out of there and it'll just come right out. There's 2 of them like that, and they're right there, and I got to take those off. Okay, I got those 2 wires off, or those 2 hoses off of there, and you can hear the air running out, and it's going to run the truck out of air completely, and that's okay, doesn't matter. We don't need air for anything down there because it's all up on jack stands. The whole truck is. So I'm just going to try to remember that the black one was towards the back and the gray one was towards the front. I'm going to try to remember that on mine. Now I'm going to go down here and take this collar off. Okay, I got that boot loose, and I'm not going to pull this top of this thing off of here. I'm just going to slide this little deal here back up into its place and put the screw back in there part way so I don't lose it. And let me get that in there. I got my screw in there so I don't lose it, and I'm just going to pull this thing up, and I'm going to pull these hoses and wires out of there. Phone's ringing. Got those hoses out of the way. This boot's just sliding around. We'll get that shifter off of here in a second. I'm just going to pull this bolt right here. It's obvious. I don't know about other trucks. If it's different, then you'll just have to figure out how to do it or find another video. But on mine, pull this bolt out and then this slides right off the top. Well, I couldn't figure out what that bolt was. Turns out that it's an Allen, because I couldn't see it. I had to bring a mirror and a flashlight in here. This boot kept falling down, so I just folded a piece of tape underneath it like that. Now that we got the shifter out, I want to see if I can get the camera to show something that's down here. Well, these hoses right here got a bracket down there that we'll have to take off. Take the least amount of screws, the easiest to get to as possible, to loosen up everything that's bolted onto the transmission that stays on the truck that we don't take down with the transmission. And let's see if we can get this camera to twist in such a way where we can see the bell housing bolts right there. See those bell housing bolts? They're a lot easier to get to through this hole than they are with a whole bunch of long extensions and swivel joints trying to get up there at them. So you can get as many of those off on the top as you can through this shifter hole while we're up here on this end. Just a picture of how the wiring is on that switch right there. I don't even know what that switch is for, but that bolt right there that's up had this little ground wire underneath it. That ground wire right there was under it. Just going to go ahead and get all the bell housing bolts off that I can reach from up here, and we still have a big mount that goes all the way across here. Those two big bolts, that one and this one here, they're 15/16 is the size of those bolt heads. That is holding the back of the transmission up on a big spring that goes all the way across. So don't have to worry about taking too many bolts off the top. We'll take all we can get off the top here, and then we'll get a jack underneath the bottom and take these off up here. I'm going to take these fuel lines. I can either unbolt the fuel lines, this strap here, or I can just take this bolt out. I don't want to start a leak at this point, so I don't know if taking the bolt out is a good idea or not, because it's down below the oil level inside the transmission. So either way, whichever is easier for you, either way works. And I got to do the same thing on this one up here. So, and I got to do that on all of them. Everything that has something on it that has to come off, and everything's got to be freed up. And then this bracket right here is the one that has those two big bolts on top. Here's the leaf spring I was talking about that sits on top of these keepers here. Sits on those. That holds the back end of the transmission up, gives it a little bit of spring so when you're hitting bumps and the frame is flexing and whatnot. I probably should have taken the drive shaft down first, but I didn't. I went up to Freightliner and ordered the part. Actually, I picked up the parts they had. I don't have a new yoke for this, but I do have a new carrier bearing and a new U-joint, and I'm going to put those on when I put this back together. On these lines here, you only got to take off, I forgot to show it when I was taking them off, but you only got to take off this one that's got the ferrule on it. These that have the collar that you press in, you leave them on there because they stay on the transmission. This is your air supply. The air line comes from back here, and that's the only one you need to take off.